Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. That's the newest and latest full grand opening date of the Grand Egyptian Museum. A few weeks ago, November 1st was thrown out. But as I warned in the last update video I released about that announcement, there was a high likelihood that yet more timing adjustments would soon follow. Yet again. And they did. But there is one huge problem with this new timing. It's right in the middle of the upcoming tourism high season in the fourth quarter of 2025. And before they do the grand opening, they're going to be doing what I'm going to call a grand closing of the gym for over 2 weeks leading up to the grand opening, from October 15th through November 3rd. This will not only cause significant disruptions in the gym's operation during the busiest part of the year, but the severe delay of the announcement of the long-awaited details surrounding the new inconvenient grand opening and grand closing now means that hundreds of thousands of tourists who already had pre-planned trips to Egypt during the second half of October are either going to have to cancel their trips or postpone their trips, or just not get to see the gym at all. This is a huge failure of planning or strategic thinking, and especially of communication and public relations on the part of the Grand Egyptian Museum. But it's what we've come to expect from the government, the ministry, and from the tourism industry generally here in Egypt. So let's dive into what they have now announced, what we know from that, and what it means for you and the global traveling public. If you saw my last video update about the gym, following the government's announcement of a November 1st grand opening, I advised caution in believing this new date. In fact, although I made a video about it for the Egypt Travel Channel, I didn't even bother sending it out to the 110,000 people on our gym email list around the world yet, because, as I predicted, that date would likely change by a day or few before too long. Just as happened with the July grand opening date that was first announced to be July 3rd, and then July 5th, and finally July 6th. In that same vein, the recently announced November 1st grand opening date has now been moved to November 4th. This is because the Egyptian government has been failing to distinguish between the full opening date to the public and the grand opening ceremony in the little communications they've been putting out. And no one in Egyptian media has been questioning, or perhaps they didn't even know how to distinguish, that important difference. This should be the job of the public relations office for the gym's management company, which is called Legacy. But they continue to be asleep on the job and are instead forcing the global public to rely on more experienced and motivated players in the tourism industry in Egypt and the wider region, like us, to do the real job of global public relations for them. So here again, we are doing their job and breaking down what you can expect in less than 60 days when the impact of all of this will begin to take place. What do I mean by impact? Well, remember how I told you in previous videos that the gym was scheduled to close for over 2 weeks in late June in order to get ready for its July 3rd, then 5th, then 6th full public opening. And in that last video, I shared that we should expect a similar pre-opening full closure period for the gym in advance of this new November 1st, now November 4th grand opening. Well, the official word now is that they are still going to take a full 2.5 weeks to fully close down the gym to the public prior to its full grand opening. And this time, the 2.5 weeks happens to unfortunately, and I'd even say stupidly, fall during the tourism high season in Egypt. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people have already booked trips to Egypt for October, having fully expected the gym to be fully open for several months already at the time they made their travel plans. But now, those who are coming for the last 2 weeks of October and the first few days of November will not only not get to see the gym fully open, but they won't get to see the gym at all as a result of this ill planned 2.5 week closure during high season. But it is what it is. Welcome to the wonderful world of trying to do business in Egypt. We deal with this all the time, and it's just par for the course for us. However, for those visiting Egypt only once, as most foreign tourists do, it's a huge letdown. But it's one that everyone will now have to work with and plan around. So let's talk about specifics. The new currently announced full closure period for the gym, what I'm calling the grand closing, is set for October 15th through November 3rd. That means that no one visiting Egypt during this time will be able to enter the gym or see anything inside of the gym during these dates. On November 1st, we expect the government to put on a huge, lavish grand opening ceremony at the gym that will be attended by the President of Egypt, most or all of the country's cabinet ministers, and likely also many foreign ambassadors, dignitaries, and celebrities from around the region. However, we know that Egypt's most famous global celebrity, Liverpool football MVP Mo Salah, likely won't be there for that November 1st ceremony because the powers that be within Egypt scheduled the ceremony on the one day around that time that Liverpool plays a match. Another not so smart or well thought out decision that will likely prevent their biggest global asset from being present on their big day. But again, it is what it is. If you currently have a trip planned to Egypt in late October of this year or early November, my best honest advice to you would be to postpone it until later, a few weeks later, or better yet, a few months later if you're able to. And if you're planning future travel to Egypt in the next few months and haven't made solid plans yet, I'd strongly suggest waiting until the first few weeks, with the inevitable first few hiccups, have a chance to pass. Come when the kinks are smoothed out so that you have a better and more predictable experience. February, March, and April will still have good weather in Egypt, and enough time will have passed so that they'll have things running smoother. And that will also give you enough buffer time so that if for some reason they miss the new target grand opening date yet again, you'll still have time to reschedule. Egypt and the gym are still absolutely worth seeing. The tourism industry here just suffers from a lot of pathologies that make planning a trip here without expert help, especially a trusted person on the ground here, a little difficult. But as long as you're subscribed to the Egypt Travel channel here on YouTube, you'll always be plugged in to the best sources of information about travel to and around Egypt, no matter when you want to visit. Until the next update, my friends, ma salama.